Welcome back to Mr. Vaughn's classroom, where he makes math so easy, even I can do it.
Before we get started on this video, I'd like to ask you to please hit the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and engage with a comment below. In this video, we're looking at Unit 2 on congruence, Lesson 4, Congruent Triangles, Part 2. The learning goal today is to figure out if there are shortcuts for being sure two triangles are congruent. To summarize what you're going to see in today's practice problems, if we know that every pair of corresponding parts is congruent, then we know the two triangles are congruent. This is what we began talking about in the previous video. But we don't need that much information. If we know the angles of a triangle are 30 degrees and 60 degrees, we can figure out that the third angle is 90 degrees. And this goes back to the lesson where we talked about triangles having 180 degrees total when you add up the interior angles. So when we start drawing a triangle, the triangle is complete before we measure every angle. Figuring out which sets of measurements are enough to draw a complete triangle tells us which sets of measurements are enough to prove triangles are congruent. Here are three sets of measurements that appear to be enough information to prove that the two triangles will be congruent. So the first example they're going to give us is when you have two pairs of corresponding sides that are congruent and the angle between those two sides are congruent. And you will see this one referenced in the future as side, angle, side. So the first side could be the sides that have the 1 tick mark, then the angle between them that is marked with the 1 tick mark, and then the other side is the side that has the 2 tick marks. So if you can look at a triangle or a set of triangles and you see that you have one set of congruent sides, an angle set that is congruent, and then the other side is congruent, then by this side, angle, side, we know that the entire triangle is congruent to each other. Next, we have two pairs of corresponding angles that are congruent and the side between those angles. So previously we said side, angle, side. Now we're going to say angle, side, angle. If you know that two of the angles are congruent and you know the side in between those angles is congruent, then you can prove that the entire triangle is congruent to each other. And then lastly, three pairs of corresponding sides. If all three sides are congruent, then you know the triangle is congruent because the angles are then going to have to be congruent. So these are the three things we're going to start concentrating on. Either knowing that side, angle, side, knowing that angle, side, angle, or knowing side, side, side. So the learning target in this lesson says that we can write conjectures about what we need to know to prove two triangles are congruent. Meaning, we can write statements that say, if I know that I have two sides that are congruent and the angle between them, I know that the two triangles are congruent. Or writing a statement that says, if I know two sets of angles are congruent and the side between them is also congruent, then I know the two triangles are congruent. Or writing a statement that says, if I know all three sides of the triangles are congruent, then I know that the two triangles are congruent to each other. So they're wanting you to be able to put this into words in written form that helps you prove your case. Now that we're done with the introduction, let's go ahead and take a look at the practice problems.
We're going to have so much winning, you'll get tired of winning. You're going to get tired of solving all these fantastic problems.
Match each statement using only the information shown in the pairs of congruent triangles. So in statement A, it says in the two triangles there are three pairs of congruent sides. So if we're looking for three pairs of congruent sides, we're looking for an example of side, side, side. Now, if we look at the choices, in number 1, they've marked two sides and an angle. So that would not be an example of side, side, side. In number 2, they've marked two angles and the triangles share a side. So that would not be an example of side, side, side. But in number 3, they've marked this side and this side as being congruent. They have marked this side and this side as being congruent. And then the triangles share this side, so that must be congruent. So that means number 3 is our example of side, side, side. Now we can look at B. The two sides and the included angle of one triangle are congruent to two sides and the included angle of another triangle. This is an example of side, angle, side. And starting with number 1, we see they give us two sides and the angle between them. So they're saying this side and this side are congruent. They're saying this side and this side are congruent. And they're saying the angle between them is congruent. Therefore, number 1 is the example of side, angle, side. And statement C, the two angles and the included side of one triangle are congruent to two angles and the included side of another triangle. So this is going to be an example of angle, side, angle. So now if we look, they're telling us that this angle and this angle are congruent to each other. They're telling us this angle and this angle are congruent to each other. And then we can see that the triangles share this side. So that must be congruent because they're the same exact line. Therefore, number 2 is the example of angle side angle. So hopefully this coloring makes sense, and hopefully you have a better understanding of side, 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 the example down in number 3, side, angle, side, the example in number 1, and angle, side, angle, the example in number 2. But if you do still have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. Now let's look at practice problem number 2.
We're going to solve this problem not because it's easy, but because we need to get to Mars.
Sketch the unique triangles that can be made with angle measures 40 degrees and 100 degrees and side length 3. How do you know you have sketched all possibilities? So let's take the information we know. We know that we have an angle of 40 degrees, an angle of 100 degrees, and we have some other angle that we don't know yet. And we know that all triangles must sum to 180 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the two angles together that we know. That's going to be 140 degrees. Now if we subtract 140 degrees from both sides, that tells us the missing angle must be 40 degrees. So we have angles of 100 degrees, 40 degrees, and 40 degrees. So when we draw this triangle, it's going to end up being an isosceles triangle. Because we're going to have an angle here that's 100, an angle here that's 40, and an angle here that's 40. And when you have angles that are congruent, such as here and here, then the sides opposite of them, here and here, are also congruent. So there are two possibilities here. We know we have a side length of 3. Well, the first option is to say that the side opposite the 100 degree angle is the side that's 3. And then these other two sides must be something smaller than 3. Or we draw that same triangle. We have the 100 degree angle the 40, and the 40, we said the 40-degree angles are congruent, and the sides opposite of them are congruent. So if it's not this bottom, the base of the triangle that's 3, then it would need to be these sides that are 3. And then the bottom is something bigger than 3. And now we know this must be the only two options because we've now drawn options where all 3 sides have the side length of 3. So, how do we know if two angles are 40 degrees, then the sides opposite the 40-degree angles are congruent. So, it's an isosceles triangle. These are the only two options. I hope this diagram helps you make sense of this practice problem. If you do still have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below.
Now, some might say this problem is too difficult. They'll tell you to give up, but I believe in American ingenuity. I believe in your ability to find a solution. Let's get to work.
What is the least amount of information that you need to construct a triangle congruent to this one? We've talked about it a few times, but there's 3 sets of information that we could go with. Number 1 is the most obvious, and that is side, side, side. If I know how long LK, LJ, and JK are, then obviously I would be able to construct a triangle that is the exact same. Okay, so the side lengths of all 3 sides. Now, in addition to that, if we only knew 2 of the sides, such as LK and LJ, then I could still draw a congruent triangle if I knew the angle that was between them. And that is what we call side angle side, where we know the side lengths of two sides and the angle between them. And the reason that this works is that if I know how long LK is, I can draw it. Then, if I know the angle at which I should draw this adjacent LJ, then I'll know where to draw it. And then if I know how long LJ is, I can go ahead and draw it in. Well, once I've done that, I have LK and I have LJ, and I have them at the proper lengths and in the right spots. All I have to do is then draw this line that connects J and K, and I have the triangle. So I would be able to with those three pieces of information. And then the third option is when I only have one side length. So if I were to have the side length for LK, then I would also need the angle for L and the angle for K. And this is what we call angle side angle. This is the side length of one side and the two angles attached to it. Because what would happen is that I would be able to draw LK. I know how long it is. Once I can draw LK because I know how long it is, then I know the angle for L, so I know where I should draw LJ. And I know the angle for K, so I know where I should draw KJ. And I can just draw these two lines until they cross at point J, in which case I would have my congruent triangle. So again, these are the three sets of information that we need in order to draw these congruent triangles. And we're going to see a lot more about these three sets of information. We need side, 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 so the lengths of all three sides. We need side angle side, which is the side length of any two sides, and then specifically the angle that is between those two sides. Or we need two angles and the side between those two angles specifically, angle, side, angle. I hope everything that we have gone over in these practice problems had made sense. Let's go ahead and take a look at the learning target and just ensure that you know everything you need to before you move on to the next lesson. Reviewing the learning target for Unit 2, Lesson 4, there was only one. And this one says that you can write conjectures about what you need to know to prove two triangles are congruent. So what they mean here is that you can write statements as to the three different sets of information that you need in order to prove two triangles are congruent. So you can write an explanation about how if you have the three side lengths, then you know by side, side, side that the three triangles are congruent. You could write a statement explaining how if you have two side lengths and the angle between them, then by side angle side, you will know that the triangles are congruent. Or you could write a statement about how if you had two angles and the side in between those angles, then by angle side angle, you can show how you know the two triangles are congruent. I hope that makes sense to you, but if you still have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. In the bottom left corner, you should see another video that YouTube is recommending to you. If you find these videos helpful, please give this one a thumbs up. And in the bottom right, you should see the subscription button. It really helps out the channel if you subscribe, and you'll know when I put out another video. And with that, I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.